the Lightforge podcast. This is Adwicto.
This is Merps. Welcome to the mega review of Fractured in Alterac Valley. Less mega than other ones because this one is going to be shorter, I promise. No copium.
Super meta. We are starting early just to give us extra runtime in case this goes on for 12 hours this time.
Look, no. This is going to be shorter. This is definitely going to be shorter. Okay, what are we talking about first?
Well, we're talking about the length of this upcoming review first, and how long I can stall for by adding to the time. So if you guys don't know, and you guys are listening to if you guys aren't watching this live, they're taking bets on how long each of these segments are going to be. So I'm not going to say whether I took the over and under on 20 minutes on this, but I am saying a lot of words. So for Alterac Valley, in all seriousness, this is going to be a sick, ridiculous set. You're going to hate it unless they ban cards. If you listen to the Lightforge podcast, or watch videos or just kind of hang out on our channel, you know what's coming. We've been talking about it, and cards need to be banned. Rules need to be changed in Arena, and especially now that we actually have the rotation, we know the rotation's coming in, and it's a wild rotation. It's not a standard rotation, so it's just going to be super terrible if they don't ban some cards. And honestly, I don't know how many of these cards they're going to ban. So this is what we're in for, which is potentially problematic if you care about, the arena being a really fun experience, but it's really exciting from a card review perspective, because we get to talk about ridiculous cards and how they're going to work in the arena.
Okay. Yes. Can I do my thing?
Okay. So what Merps did is normally you have me here telling you what the next meta is going to be, especially because we know which rotations are coming in now. But this time, Merps is gonna do it because I was super freaking busy and I am not working and I should be doing my day job right now. But instead, I'm doing this for 12 hours. So let's go, Merps. What is your take on the upcoming rotation and the meta that's incoming?
Not 12 hours. Okay, first of all, here are the sets that you will be playing with when the expansion drops. Obviously, you have the new set, Fractured and Alterac. I think it's Alterac Valley. You have your core set, and then you have Saviors of Oldham, Cabals and Catacombs, League of Explorers, Skullman's Academy, and the Boomsday Project. So, we are going to be discussing the newest set. Obviously, that's what we're here for. We know already what's in core. So what I'm going to say next is going to be focusing on the 5 middle sets that we haven't really been exposed to recently. We're going to look at the powerful cards that are coming back. We're going to talk about some themes. But what I wanted to point out, because you guys might listen to this and be like, Merps, you missed this card, you missed that card. I won't be able to catch probably every card you're thinking of, but what I'm trying to do is list good cards that you might see pretty often that you might want to play around.
Just to put it in your head, so when you see it, you're not surprised. You're like, oh yeah, this thing's still here.
Yeah, things that might not be super duper powerful in terms of power level in 2021, but stuff that you might need to think about. For example, Flame Ward is back. And I think Flame Ward, in terms of Mage Secrets, is one that you always need to know. Is Flame Ward in? Is Flame Ward out? Because that determines a lot on the order that you play and, whether you go face or not. Flame Ward is in, by the way. But I thought that was a good example. Or if it's just a card that allows a class to do something that they really weren't able to do before. So there might even be some fairly powerful cards, but if you don't hear me mention it, I might have missed it, but it's probably because I'm just they could do that before. They have a million ways to do that. It's just another way for them to do that. So let's talk about neutrals first, because no matter what class you're playing, you're going to be drafting neutral cards. They have the biggest impact on the meta. Hearthstone has been trending in a particular direction for quite a few years, and it is this double sort of arms race where number one, you're punished more often for leaving your opponents with the board, but you have more ways to clear the board as well. And the second aspect of it, more ways to clear the board, no set probably gave you more tools than Skullman's Academy. And that is coming back in. So let's look at the neutrals. First, Broomstick is back. So in terms of 1-drops, it's not a 1-drop, but you got Rush on everything. So Broomstick is back, and if you look at 2-drops, you have Neferset Ritualist, the first part of that. You're punished more for leaving them with a board. You have Sneaky Delinquent, you have Transfer Student, and Wand Maker. Just these things that give you a little bit more value as well. Remember, Skullman's Academy was one that like not only gave you a lot of initiative, it gave you a lot of refill. It was really the set that triggered this. You have as much cards as you could possibly want meta. If you remember when Skullman's first came out, right? 3-drops, you got Dragon Slayer, which, you know, we don't like hate cards, right? I think Galaka Glutton is the latest example, and if you watch the Boomer stream, he probably has popped quite a few blood vessels. Like, he probably is bleeding internally from Galaka, and Dragon Slayer is, in that same vein, very problematic. For 4-drops, we have Shroom Brewer, just a very good, solid 4-drops. And we have Fishy Flyer. Remember, like, Fishy Flyer is just such a card that encompasses both of those things. You have just so many more ways to remove their board, and it's just like extra value on top of it. For 5-drops, Fungalmancer's coming back. You have Steward of Scrolls as well. Remember, a lot of ways to punish your opponent if they give you stuff on the board to do things with, but you also have a lot of this refill. For 6-drops, we have Smug Senior and Hungry Etten for big taunts. Big taunts are always something I want to consider. It's like, are there big taunts in the meta? Hungry Etten is just a big taunt. Smug Senior, we all know, that's just so much taunt. Just one of the all-time classic great arena cards. And then, of course, we have Mage Scribe. Mage Scribe, just the nexus, the linchpin of the Skullman's idea of however many cards you want, you got it. So Mage Scribe is back. And you hear me talking about Skullman's a lot, and you're like, wait, Merps, there's 5 sets. Yeah, but Skullman's is the one that will have the biggest impact, because it's the latest set. It's just going to have the best cards. Cards from later expansions just have a bigger impact because of the power level. We talked about this before in the podcast, but you're going to hear me mention like Boomsday once. You know, you're going to hear me mention like League of Explorers just once or twice in terms of these cards, because I looked at those neutrals and I'm just like, my God, these do not belong in Hearthstone Arena 2021. But for big drops, 7+. Remember how I said there are much more ways to clear the board, which means your big drops have to stick. And the ones that really stand out are Wrapped Golem, Violent Worm, and Plagued Protodrake. These are ones that we've all played with pretty recently, but these are the ones that really stand out because, like, you gotta science them and remove them. You gotta do something weird to them. You can't just, like, smash like a single kind of minion into them in order to get them off the board. So neutrals, that's what we are looking at. You want to think back on your experiences during Skullman's Academy. I'm not saying it's exactly like that because we have other crazy cards as well, but during that time in which there were so many ways to remove stuff from the board and so many ways to get value, we're going to be looking at that a lot more. So in terms of classes, here are some either very powerful ones or just interesting ones for class cards that are coming back. Let's start off with Demon Hunter. Cycle of Hatred is back. That is one of the strongest and just most oppressive cards the arena has ever seen.
Is Performer still in?
No, I don't think Performer is
okay, good.
So we have Cycle of Hatred. Druid, we have tools for big Druid now. So you have Survival of the Fittest, and you have Twilight Runner and Teacher's Pet. If you guys remember, because I think a lot of people, when they think of Druid and they think of just like, they get PTSD from like that token Arbor Up Druid that really dominated the meta fairly recently-ish. But what people might forget is there was a period of time in which you could really play big Druid. And what really helped Druids out during that time were good mid-game cards like Twilight Runner, Teacher's Pet, and then you can, get to Survival of the Fittest, and whatever card you draw is instantly going to be huge. So that's something to keep in mind for Druid. For Hunters, there's not so much like game-changing stuff that's coming back. You want to remember Crushing Walls. Like that kind of removal Hunter hasn't had for a while. So Crushing Walls, you want to remember. They get True Aim Crescent back, which is very nice. True Aim Crescent is back for both of the classes. But yeah, that's something you want to remember for Hunter, although you don't really want to play around it. For Mage, Flame Ward, I mentioned, whenever a secret is out, don't make this mistake, right? Like you're used to not playing around Flame Ward. You got to remember Flame Ward is in. That's a secret in which if you misplay around it, that could just end your game on the spot. It's too punishing. Wand Thief is back. I know a lot of people are going to be either really happy or unhappy with this, but Wand Thief was one of those things with Mage Scribe and with Steward of Scrolls that really made a lot of these classes just like, they just find so many answers, so many spells. Well, it's back. Along with Firebrand, which was one of the most crazy kind of like small-maned tempo swings that you could have. Puzzle Box is back. That's
God.
Going to be interesting because you have Wand Thief and Mage Scribe, and then you have Puzzle Box.
Card with Puzzle Box.
Yes, and then of course Devolving Missiles is back for both Mage and Shaman. Devolving Missiles was so good starting with Scholomance because Silence at the beginning of Hearthstone's lifespan was trash. It was terrible. If you look at Silence now, so if you look at Librarian now, for example, yes, it's good because it is tradable, but it's also just good. Like you're able to find a Silence target much easier. And that's going to hold true. Minions are just going to be trickier. They have more effects other than they're just base stats. There are more ways to buff. So having silence effects are really good. So Devolving Missiles is going to be as good as it was, if not better. Paladins got a lot of power cards back. But this is one of those things. Paladins just always have really good cards. They get Keeper of Uldaman back, which is one of the only cards from League.
Sets, yeah.
The old sets, like the old sets, that still holds up. Like you draft a Keeper of Uldaman, you're like, okay, I'm pretty happy with this. But they also get Blessing of Authority back. They get Argent Braggart back. So these are a couple of things that, like, Blessing of Authority is nothing new. It's just stupidly overpowered. And Argent Braggart is a way for them to cheat tempo in a way that what was not readily available to them before. Argent Braggart is just too good at cheating tempo. Let's talk about Priest. Some of you guys are not going to like this, but Priest. If you remember Scholomance Academy Priest, which was super duper annoying, super duper oppressive, because what they could do was generate tons of cards and dragons through Draconic Studies. Remember, all the studies are back. All the studies are back because of Scholomance Academy. So, yes, Priest is getting rid of some annoying cards, but they're getting back so many annoying cards. And they should be able to play the style that people found really annoying before, which was remove, discover, and then blow you out with these like big cards. So, Psychic Scream is back, Entomb is back, Excavated Evil is back, Brutal Bone Destroyer is back. You guys are starting to remember that meta, right? In which priests just remove. You can't always play around these removals. You just can't. And then what ends up happening is then they do Draconic Studies. Then they, like with their own Mage Scribe, then they generate stuff. And then they just wear you out and blow you out. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, because I can't say that anymore. Remember, it's all about the adjustments. Like, Blizzard can make Priests great, they can make them bad. I'm just telling you, all the building blocks are there for Priests to do that kind of thing that made the Scholomance Academy meta Priest for a period of time really unfun to play against. Rogues don't really have much. They got Wand Thief back, but like look at what Mage got back, right? They got Wand Thief back and all those other great stuff. Rogue has like Faldori Strider back, which is still good, mostly because games will go on for a little bit longer, so you're more likely to get those shuffled minions, which is nice. It's a lot of value. Remember, they have Sudden Betrayal back. That's just keep that in mind, because with Rogue Secrets, a lot of times people just like don't remember, and you can get really screwed with Sudden Betrayal. So just keep that in mind. Rogue Secret, maybe it's Sudden Betrayal. How do we play around that? Okay. Shaman is a super duper interesting one because you want to look at the Shaman cards that they have gotten and then think about, do they have support for it? So getting a little bit ahead of myself, you'll see that Shaman has a lot of freeze stuff. Like, this is just the freeze Shaman package. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see if they have the stuff to support it. And they do. Shaman gets back Earthquake, Tidal Wave, Primordial Studies, which remember gives them spell damage, and they have Devolving Missiles, and they have Unstable Evolution. So they have these, it's like, it's not just enough for you to freeze. Can you capitalize on the freeze? Are you freezing towards AoE, right? And once again, I'm not saying Shamans will be good, but they have the tools to do it. So maybe, right? Warlock didn't really get back much stuff. They got back Brutal Bone, which is nice. They have School Spirit in terms of another form of AoE, but Warlock has always been able to AoE, so it's like, not anything special. Warriors, let's talk about, let's give a shout out to Boomsday Project for making the only contribution on this list to Warriors in the form of Super Collider, which is still disgusting to this day. I mean, it was disgusting, it is disgusting, but this is like Boomsday Project's only real contribution. They have Athletic Studies is back, and like we said, more removal, more initiative is always good. And for a big drop, they have Troublemaker, one of the best big things of all time. So, if you're thinking of a card, I didn't name it yet, maybe I missed it, maybe I just didn't think it was that important, but hopefully this gives you a good idea of what is coming back, what we can expect, and it's going to be very Skullomance Academy driven, sprinkled with some like KNC, Saviors of Oldham, and Boomsday and League. There's a few, but whatever. Skullomance Academy. Remember, Skullomance Academy is going to be the biggest impact outside of the the core and the new expansion.
So I think what's important to realize here is not just that Skullomance Academy is going to be the set that has the most impact, and it's that most of these sets have little to no impact on the meta. So you're going to have a lot of just underpowered cards in your deck. Back in the day, if you're thinking of the meta before United and Stormwind came out, and there was always Ashes of Outlands, there was always Skullomance Academy. The set of dragons was in for like the longest times. Those are freaking amazing sets that are in. You don't have those anymore. You just have one Skullomance Academy that's coming back. And then you have this new set that is grossly overpowered compared to the old stuff that is coming out. But still, that means overall, your deck is going to be filled with a lot of less than great cards. So if you're looking at the meta, it's not so much that you're going to play a meta that is just Skullomance Academy and Alterac. You're going to play in a meta that's going to be half Skullomance Academy and Alterac, and then half random crap you had to pick up that really no longer like cuts it. And you're going to feel it. So both on you and on your opponent's side. So there's going to be a lot of this swing that comes down to like luck of the draw, luck of the draft, and a lot of big giant power swings. And depending on what cards you have, you can either get them back or not. So one of the things that's going to come in really heavily in this new meta that's going to that we're entering is card management. Not, oh, I have a removal, I need to make sure I still have a removal, but when to trigger these power spikes. Because you're going to get some of them, because Skullomance Academy is kind of ridiculous, and Alterac Valley is even more ridiculous. But you're also going to have a lot of holes in your deck. So when you want to spike your power in the course of a game is going to be one of those skills that that becomes very important in this.
All right. Yep. That's what you want to consider, and I think that's good. I think that's a good discussion of kind of like the Cesar coming back and what you should be expecting. I don't think anything should be a surprise. If I'm telling you, like, well, your stuff is going to get cleared more often, the swings are going to be bigger, I think you're just like, yep, that's just Arena these days.
Yeah.
But it is important to note how they can happen, on what turns they can happen, and exactly sort of like, you know, what the removal is. Is it like pure damage, or is it like a psychic scream from a priest, in which it doesn't really matter what you do, you know, you're getting cleared. If you play that Proto Drake, it's not sticky in any way, it's just going to get screamed back into the deck.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good way to kind of put the setting together of what Fractured and Alterac Valley is coming into. Again, with these rotations, it's coming into a brand new rotation. This is not the rotation you had before. This is also not dual class anymore. So it's coming into this this new rotation. Okay. Do we have any... I want to give a shout out to our patrons in general first, at patreon.com/grinninggoat. We're going to be doing a lot of shout outs throughout the rest of this 12-hour series. It's not going to actually be 12 hours, hopefully. But we're going to start off with our Patreons at patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for your support. And I want to give a shout out to our top patrons: RB Night Train, Yin, 15 Gold Cringe, Eric L, Aaron LS, Dan F, Karova, REG, 4P, and Brand New. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and hope everyone's enjoying this video series. We are going to move right after this into the actual card review portion.